Ted. Just want to do an audio check. Can you hear me?
4x4, Alex. We're on mute. We're just sitting here, Kibbeson. Thanks. So we've got, it's 10 o'clock. Okay. Well, welcome, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the second Cuyahoga County Internal Equity Commission. I'd like to call the meeting to order. My name is Ted Carter. I'm the Chief Economic Development and Business Officer for Cuyahoga County. I'm joined in our 7th floor conference room by David Merriman, the Director of the Health and Human Services Agency for the county. And let me go ahead and call roll to officially bring the meeting to order. David Merriman.
Present.
Jesse Drucker.
Present.
Thank you. Nora Lockett. Okay, we have a quorum, but we'll give David, Director Merriman, would you just mind texting Director Lockett just in case you got caught in the ERP meeting or something?
Will do.
Alex Pelham.
Present.
Present, okay. Ted Carter, present. We have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and get started here. I want to just, at our last meeting, we started a bit late and kind of launched into the meeting, so want to really engage in this meeting very thoughtfully. I want to see if our county exec has joined us and give him an opportunity to provide any opening remarks. County exec, are you?
I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Okay, good morning, sir. Do you want to, before we launch into our business, provide any remarks this morning?
Sure. I'll just, again, thank everyone for participating in this. And I know you're already devoting a lot of energy, knowing that you're talking and working we have a lot to do. We're doing a lot of great things. Everybody on this call is involved in some of our really strong activities, both COVID and non-COVID related. But we have a lot more to do when it comes to equity in particular. It's disheartening to see, for example, a couple days ago, the news came out that Cleveland was named, I believe, the poorest big city in America. And that impacts everybody, but it particularly falls on minorities in particular. So, you know, and that's not just a statistic, you know, that's people, that's families. And, you know, we need to do better. So I know that you all have a lot of work to do in your day jobs, and please keep doing those. But this work is really, really important, some of which you'll do in your day jobs and some of which will be done outside your day job. So I'm supporting you. I'm engaged. I think what you're doing is really important, and more of your time. Go for it.
Thank you, County Exec, very much for those comments, and very timely and appropriate. And Director Merriman and I were just talking about kind of the demands of our job. So I guess I'll start there because I didn't have an opportunity to say much in terms from a context standpoint at our last meeting, is that each of the commission members as the county executive, we have very demanding and important jobs, but there's no doubt that we are at a pivotal moment in our country's history, and this work is so important. So each of us will have to balance the trade-offs of time to devote to this work and to the work that overlaps with each of our functional responsibilities, but nothing could be more important at this time to get this right. So it is my hope that the output and outcome of this work, as it was intended in the two pieces of legislation that created both this body and the External Citizens Advisory Council, will lead our community to be not ranked number one because of poverty, but because of the model that we've established for equity as a principal value of our community around race, economic, and social justice. So let's proceed thoughtfully and with care and conviction moving forward. So I'd like to thank each of the commission members for the time you've devoted to this in these meetings directly, but also offline, working with our equity program manager, Kari Morales. And so thank you, County Exec, very much for setting that context this morning. So with that, let me turn to both the co-chairs and other commission members to provide any opening remarks, and then we'll get into the business.
David Merriman here. I'm just going to go ahead and recognize that I did get a text from Lenora Lockett. She's present. She was on mute during the time that we did the roll call. I think she wasn't able to toggle off mute, so I know that Director Lockett is available and on this call. So a few updates to share. First and foremost, I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Leon Harris. Dr. Harris is leading up the Department of Health and Human Services work to implement a race, equity, and inclusion lens for the Department of Human Services. And Dr. Harris has identified an assessment tool that was made available to him by Dr. Rebecca Dorman from our Office of Early Childhood. And our team is looking to release that assessment to each of our departments. We are going to be moving forward quickly and looking to complete those assessments by the end of the year, and we'll be using that information to create the plan that will drive us forward. Dr. Harris has joined us today. If there are questions, he's available to answer those questions. We've also made that tool available to other departments, and I feel like it's a place to start. Second thing, I do also just want to give some reference to one of our colleagues, Margaret Mitchell from the YWCA, issued a very thoughtful letter, a call to justice, responding to racism within our community and within America. We had an excellent call with Margaret Mitchell earlier in the week, Dr. Harris, Sabrina Roberts, and the leadership from the Office of Homeless Services, Ruth Gillette and Melissa Sirak, and walking through both what we are doing as an organization at the Department of Health and Human Services, as well as what the county is doing through this Equity Commission, as well as referencing the great work of the Citizens Advisory Council. So we wanted to let her know that there is some work underway, and we hear her concerns. We have a plan to respond to these issues, and I think we see her as a partner. One other update from Margaret Mitchell. I do understand that the YWCA has sponsored a community discussion around the book, the White Fragility. There's actually an event that has been made available to the public. There are tickets, there are limited seating to it. If anybody wants to participate in a community discussion around the book, White Fragility, with the author of that book, it is scheduled for next month. I think information is available on the YWCA's website. Those are all my updates.
Okay, thank you, Director Merriman. Director Lockett, and then we'll go to the other commission members for any comments. Okay. Director Pelham.
Yes. Thank you, Director Carter. I'm going to keep it really brief because I know we're going to get into some other stuff, but I want to thank the executive. I want to thank everybody else that's on the commission for the dedication and the seriousness they've taken to this. We're in a time, and it's going to be understated, and I don't think it can be overstated, a very stressful time on both a health, a social, political landscape. And being a part of this allows us, in my mind, to make a difference that can be affected today and can continue to compound and make a difference over the next 50 to 100 years in Cuyahoga County. We have a true opportunity, and it goes all the way back to the Athenian Code from thousands of years ago, to leave this place in a better position than we got it. And I'm excited to be a part of this, excited to work with this team and help lead change and help start that momentum that we move forward.
Okay, thank you, Director Pelham. Well said. So nice collegiate reference there. Director Trucker.
Yes, I too would like to to thank the executive and my colleagues for the opportunity of working with them on this. To echo Director Pelham, we are in a very tumultuous time, but I think this provides us with the opportunity of creating a beacon for the rest of Cuyahoga County, and to establish best practices that will lead by an example as to how other governmental entities and other profit-making companies should conduct their business. So I'm really looking forward to the work that we hope to accomplish here and the example that we hope to set.
Very much, Director Drucker. Couple of housekeeping notes before you.
I'm sorry, but is Lenora Lockett been unmuted? Okay.
Ms. Morales, can you just please unmute Director Lockett and then just check and confirm that we are streaming? I'm getting text that we may not be streaming live.
Good morning, everyone. She should be unmuted. Lenora?
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to do two things. She's telling us that she's on mute, and that stream's not working. So we're having some technical difficulties, so everyone just bear with us. For a moment.
Hello, Lenora's here. Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries, Director Lockett. While you talk, Ms. Morales, if you just check with IT on the streaming for us, please, that would be terrific. Thank you. Go ahead, Director Lockett.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about the delay here on my part. I had to join from another room because we had an ongoing ERP meeting. I want to echo the sentiments presented by others. That first, thank you for the executive. This starts from top down. We all can individually have these goals in our heart, but it takes the leadership to push it forward throughout the agency. I want to thank you for the opportunity to work with my colleagues to further make our county the best that it can be by being as diverse and inclusive as possible. And I want to state that my department, we're committed to continuing our diversity efforts. We're doing outreach, certifying companies, and trying to promote opportunities for businesses, diverse businesses in county purchasing and contracting. We see it as something of continuous improvement. So again, while we are hardworking now, we want to continue to work smarter and better to get continued better results.
Yes,
Can I do one other update? I had one other brief update.
All right. Thank you, Director Lockett. So we're still trying to work through the technical issues. I understand getting Ms. Morales that the event is still not streaming.
Yeah, this is Jonathan. No, your event is streaming. This has been streaming the entire time. You're in Committee Room A as opposed to Committee Room B on Council Chambers website. So you're live and been going. So we're all set.
I would let people know if that affected me. That say they can't. Okay. So they should just go to Committee Room A on the website.
So good.
Jonathan, is that what I should advise them to do?
Yes, sir. Yeah, this is coming out of Committee Room A as opposed to Committee Room B. So it's just a different streaming location off Council Chambers. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I neglected to provide one other update. I think it's an important update. Yesterday at the the Health and Human Service Committee, the county heard the extension of the first year Cleveland program. And, I need to take a minute to recognize this is something that was championed by County Executive Armin Budish. This is a long-standing multi-year investment in addressing racial disparities in poor birth outcomes in Cuyahoga County. It's a program that is having success. There's a lot of work to do, but it was also publicly reviewed yesterday in the Human Service Committee, supported by County Council to move forward. We believe it's going to be approved at the next meeting. And it is, to me, always necessary for us to recognize that we have made some investments, we are doing some good work to address racial disparities in our community that are being, that are being responded to by a leadership working together with Case and others, Case Western Reserve University and others, to actually have a change. So as we have this meeting, as we do this work, we are also participating in broad partnerships to address specific aspects of this social problem.
Okay, Director Marin, thank you for that important update on the work that your agency is doing. With that, I'd like to turn to the agenda and go to the review of last meeting's minutes. I have a couple of comments, but let me open it up to the commission members before we make a motion to adopt. Any changes from the commission members' review?
I don't have anything, Ted.
Okay. Two things. Mr. Thomas, who I understand is graciously serving as our scribe. I'd point to, in the opening remarks by Executive Budish and Councilwoman Brown, just recognize the color and eloquence that both of them spoke to with respect to the importance of this work and their collective commitment to ensuring that this work is impactful for our community. And then recognize in that dialogue with Councilwoman Brown that there was an open question as to the timing of delivery of this committee's work, which I'll get to as we get to next steps at the bottom of the minutes. So just want to have that reflected in the minutes, a little more color. Let's see, there was one other item on the minutes. But the important point is that one of our pieces of homework from our last meeting was to resolve that the report for this committee's work is indeed January 31st, 2021, not December 31st of this year. That is the deliverable date for the External Advisory Council. So just want to make sure that that's reflected. It will certainly be reflected in the minutes from this meeting, but that was a point of discussion from the last meeting. So with that, if there's no other changes or additions to the September meeting minutes, entertain a motion to adopt.
I'll move to adopt.
I'll second.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, no discussions. Okay, terrific. Thank you. Also, there was one other, Mr. Thomas, on the attendance. I just want to reflect for the official record that Director Lockett had an excused absence for the September 10th meeting. So please reflect on the revised minutes excused next to Director Lockett's name as a commission. So thank you, and that we did have a quorum. Okay, with that, I'll turn the next agenda item over to Director Lockett and Director Pelham to discuss the draft bylaws. We will not adopt those today. We still have a little bit of cleanup from my perspective, but they've been working hard to make sure that we have the appropriate governance framework for our work together. So, Director Lockett.
Hi, thank you. I can speak on the fact that there was an opportunity for committee members or for the subgroup to make comments on the bylaws, the draft that was presented. Comments were submitted, and I know that there was a meeting. I was not able to attend that meeting, so at that point, I turn it over to Alex.
Yeah. So first, thank you, Director Lockett. One of the things that we went through as homework from last time was putting together a guidance of how this commission will work, how this commission will vote, who will make up. So in this document that we've been working on, there's 6 different articles. They include purpose, which looks at the ordinance and the code that gives us the purpose of what we're doing, essentially. It looks at the membership, which again is outlined in those. It looks at items like an alternate to the member if one of the directors that's outlined can't be present. Can there be an alternate, or can someone represent them? The idea that one director can't represent multiple different votes. It looks at meeting frequency, where in this currently, I believe we'd have to do it more at the beginning, but at least once per quarter. Look at the annual meeting, the first one of the year, where the executive would designate the chair and co-chair, as well as if there's an emergency meeting needed by this body, what kind of notification has to happen, and how we ensure that it continues to be a public meeting. We look at the officers, which outlines the chair and the co-chair, and it also looks at the official designation of a clerk for this commission. The clerk is a non-voting member, but is someone who is designated who will work with the commission to ensure that minutes are distributed, make sure that we've properly advertised through open records laws when we're meeting. Some of the other things that are in here include a maintenance provision, which looks at every 3 to 5 years. We're still looking on that as a minimum to review the bylaws and make sure we don't need to change them, as well as the amendment process, which carries our traditional 3 meetings unless there's a unanimous vote to suspend the rules. So without going too much further down that rabbit hole or through the looking glass, that's where we've looked. There's been a lot of comments. There's been a lot of feedback. It's very, I don't want to say technical work, but it's essentially policy writing, and it's what we got to do to put the form together so we can move forward and make sure we're operating correctly.
Thank you, Director Pelham. And I know this, as you reference, is kind of the tedious part of administrivia, but getting our governance framework accurate and solid is important as we advance our work. So thank you to you and Director Lockett for taking the lead and pulling this together, and for you for initiating and using a reference set of bylaws that we built this from. And so would like to suggest that we take the time between now and the next commission meeting to review and finalize, and then present it for a formal vote at the next commission meeting.
Will do.
Okay. Commission members, everybody good with that approach?
Yes.
Yes.
Director Drucker?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, let's turn to item 6.
Ted, can I add one thing before we move on?
Yes, sir.
I want to thank Carrie for her help in this, as she was really pivotal in making sure everybody on the commission was brought in and comments were put together, and there was a lot of coordination on her end that I don't think was recognized by me or anybody else at this point in that process. So I wanted to make sure she got credit on that.
Yep, no question. She did a great job leading into this and learning the county at the same time that she's helping guide this work. So thank you for that recognition and pointing that out. Wanted to lean into a little more of the kind of where we're going. I think at the last meeting, I said that this will be an iterative, exploratory process by all of us. I think that's turning out to be the case. And we talked a little bit about a mission statement, but in my review of both the 2012 legislation that was adopted in the county code, as well as the resolution that was passed earlier this summer with respect to racism being declared as a public health crisis and establishment of the County Citizens Advisory Council, I think our mission is pretty clear. So I just want to point to some of the language that is outlined in both of those legislative items, and just open it up for debate, and we can clarify this between now and the next meeting, but I don't think we need to hold up our work to adopt anything while we do that. In section 1101.02 in the county code that talked about the equity plan, which was established in 2012, the purpose of the equity plan and the equity commission is Cuyahoga County embraces the ideal of one united community committed to equality and opportunity for all of our citizens. As part of our equity plan, the county's objective is to remove barriers and enable all citizens in our community to have equal opportunities to fulfill their potential. This statement of intent is also reflected in Executive Buttigieg's strategic plan for the county, which was created and adopted in 2017, I believe. The county will do so by ensuring that best practices in equity are being implemented by all county departments and agencies, and by measuring progress on an ongoing basis. So that's pretty clear. And then if you align that with the resolution 2020-122, Section 3, Cuyahoga County Council and County Executive direct the County Equity Commission and the Cuyahoga County Citizens Advisory Council on Equity to review, focus, and provide recommendations to reduce the disparity between Black and white people when it comes to the following areas: healthcare, criminal justice system, healthy food, safe and affordable housing, well-paying jobs, business ownership opportunities, quality transportation, educational opportunities, and safe places to be active, including the following areas, with a status report due no later than December 31st, 2020. It goes on to talk in Section F about providing recommendations to change the 2012 legislation, which was adopted in County Code as 111101. To provide recommendations to change that plan to include social reform that will engage county employees at all levels of government, community partners, and populations who obtain services through the county in the following core areas. And I won't reread those. Those are the ones I just referenced. And then speaks to a strategic planning process that shall integrate equity and social reform in all major areas of county government, including leadership, operations and services, policies, budgets and contracts, organizational culture and workforce, community partnerships, communication and education, and facility and systems improvements. So a broad mandate, but I think our mission is clear, but we will work to formalize a synthesis of those two documents. And so we have two things that occurred when the new government was created. This was identified as a priority, and I understand that there was also an equity plan at that time that was adopted by the transition team. I'm in the process of getting a copy of that. And then with the current national environment, earlier this summer, this ordinance was passed, and so the two are converging. And so we're in the process of reconciling those two different, they're not different approaches, but they're approaches that have a different focus based on the point of time they were adopted. We will reconcile those and then come back at the next meeting with a clear focus mission statement that reflects the intent of these two pieces of legislation. But again, don't want to spend too much time on administrivia and kind of the legal language around this, but at least wanted to reframe that and be clear of kind of what our North Star is in this work and how we'll approach it. So any comments from commission members? Okay, hearing none, I will take silence as that there's agreement with that approach. And again, if you haven't, it was useful for me to reread over the weekend Resolution 122 and kind of align it with the 2012 work. Our colleague Matt Carroll has also taken some time to create a grid that shows the overlap between the two pieces of legislation. So we will work with him and Clerk Bird to make sure we have a clear understanding of the overlap and how the two entities will work together. And Mr. Thomas, that will, in my view, is one of our pieces of homework between now and the next commission meeting. And I know Clerk Bird is very open to that and anxious to make sure we have an alignment and that we're working, the two groups are working together effectively. Any other comments, thoughts, feedback from the commission? Okay, the next item is timeline. At our last meeting, as we were just getting organized and getting our thoughts aligned, we thought that we were all feeling the pressure of a deadline and trying to grapple with what's the right cadence and how often should we meet. While we voted and adopted a cadence of every 2 weeks. I think after we took a breath, we said, that feels a little ambitious, given other demands and priorities, as important as this work is, that this commission should probably meet monthly. But we also adopted that we would form a working group that would meet in between meetings to really advance the work. This commission members would work alongside that working group, and the working group would report out on interim deliverables to the commission on a monthly basis. So wanted to open that up for discussion and kind of revise our schedule formally in this meeting.
Yeah, David Merriman here. I do just want to recognize that I thought there was great discussion and good intent in looking to schedule this bi-weekly, but I do think that there is going to be a tremendous amount of work done between meetings. We need time to gather input from staff, gather data. I think moving this to a monthly meeting enables us to do a little bit more department level work, and then also time to then check in between departments and to ensure that there's collaboration and cooperation in all things. So I think moving to a monthly schedule at this point makes a lot of sense, and I fully support it.
Yeah, this is Alex. I'm in agreement with that.
Okay. Director Drucker, Lockett?
This is Lenora. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. After you.
Okay, thank you. I agree with the monthly meeting. I think that because we do have a couple of things that set the structure, that if that October meeting could be in the earlier part of October, that would be preferred. But I'm fine with a monthly meeting, even if it's not possible to be starting the early part of October.
Yeah. I mean, my only comment is I think we need to be able to be flexible, and if we see that either we're fast approaching our deadlines or that the nature of what we've opened up as the work is greater than we initially thought it would be, that we rapidly consider going to a bi-weekly meeting. But I think at this point the monthly is probably just fine.
Okay, good deal. Thank you, colleagues. So I hear consensus that we will move to a monthly meeting starting in October. And now that we've also clarified that our report is due at the end of January 2021, we could anticipate maybe going to bi-weekly right after we return from the Christmas break. The wisdom, I think, and the beauty of the alignment of this, even if it was accidental, is that this body will have the opportunity to review and reflect on the Citizens Advisory Commission's work, and we can inform how we structure and finalize our report. And I think that makes a lot of sense. So with that, we will move forward with a monthly meeting to be calendared. And so Ms. Morales will send that out to everyone. Plan on maybe the second week in October. At that meeting, we will also determine and agree on the framework for our report, and then working with the working group, kind of drive toward multiple drafts and of that report. And maybe we'll have to meet obviously in early November in order to have alignment on that direction is proceeding appropriately, and that'll give enough time for internal stakeholders and others to engage. And once we agree on the framing of it, I think we'll be in great shape. And I think having talked with you individually, that setting a framework of this work with some maybe initial data analysis will be the focus of our report, but also setting a framework for 2021 with firm deliverables against how equity will be reflected in execution of the county's policies and programs, and hiring, I might add. Okay, good deal. We'll go to agenda item C, which is finalizing the working group. So we talked about this working group, and I think we have both We also understand the importance of this working group to carry the work, so very appreciative, County Exec, of your endorsement of the importance of this work, given that this working group will have to find time among their other daily priorities to advance this work. We have identified members of the working group and sent a tentative meeting next week. The commission members will work to identify the charge for that working group. The members are reflective of the pilot agencies that have been designated to start the work around equity, and those agencies, again, for the public are HHS, as Director Merriman has already stated. He and his team have already launched this work, starting with an assessment of the equity culture that exists within the organization. My department, Department of Development, the Department of Public Works, and then the Office of Diversity, Procurement and Diversity. And so each of those agencies will be lead agencies and will be the core of the working group. We've invited other members to participate, and they are welcome. While they have no formal charge at this moment, they'll be welcome to shadow and look over the shoulders of the agencies that are starting this work to kind of learn and fast track the equity work once their agencies are teed up to participate in the process by the county exec. I'll mention again that our workforce board has launched this work on equity prior to the implementation of this commission. And so we will work alongside them and follow their work, particularly as it intersects with the work of Department of Development and HHS. And so there's a lot of significant programs and initiatives that are underway to intentionally address hiring and employment disparities. So I won't go through all of the members, but each pilot agency has identified a point person to represent their department on this working group. I think it's also important to state that, as Director Merriman stated last meeting, that we will take a, what was the word you used, Director Merriman? Federated, that was it. Everyone's reading their government literature prior to these meetings. A federated approach, meaning for the public, that each of the pilot agencies will adopt their own approach initially to advancing the work and reviewing their programs and policies, but doing this with a common baseline that Manager Morales will help coordinate. One of the important things is HHS launched this work prior to this commission being established. So we're all hoping to learn from the great work that Dr. Harris is doing. And that may start with each of the pilot agencies will evaluate the assessment tool that he is utilizing at HHS to determine its relevance and applicability to our agencies. And so my office will start to look at this next week. And then I've also given a copy to Director Drucker, and I've also shared it with the Chief of Staff. And I think Director Lockett may have a copy as well, but she is working on several other important priorities that align with this work. So by the next meeting, the intent will be to have an objective of each pilot agency to have reviewed the assessment and at least have at a minimum a plan to introduce the assessment for implementation. And I'll pause there. Director Drucker, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the assessment. If you had any comment or point of view?
No, I have, unfortunately, I have not at this point.
Okay.
So just, I know that we've referenced this tool and this assessment several times in today's conversation, but not named it. I think it's important for us to just correct the record. So the tool that we're all talking about is called the Tool for Organizational Assessment Related to Racial Equity, dated January 2014. Subtitle from the Eliminating Disparities in Children Youth Success Collaborative. This is presented by the Coalition of Communities of Color and All Hands Raised. I will include the tool in the minutes when we send this out, just because I want to preserve the record to be able to show what exactly we are reviewing and its relevance to today's discussion.
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Director Merriman. That's terrific. So on agenda C, let me just review.
Before you go on, one suggestion for your working group, if I might.
Yes, sir.
I suggest you, if you haven't already, get in touch with Law Director Huth and ask him to assign somebody because, you know, we want to push as far as we can, but we have to stay within the law. So I think it might be helpful.
Yes, sir. Anticipating that question, I've talked to Director Huth, and he has assigned Miss Andrea Nelson Moore. I don't know if she's on the call this morning, but she will be a member of the working group, and it was very helpful also in helping us draft and refine the bylaws. And also, County Exec, to that point, I think we also need someone, since the resolution also talks about budgetary implications, someone from fiscal. We have them as a placeholder, but have not identified a specific person. And then talking with Chief of Staff Mason, he is open and suggested that we also include Chief Curry. So he'll be part of the working group, but won't have any initial responsibilities with respect to pilot agencies. So with your permission, I will engage someone from fiscal to identify a point person. Okay, so I will take silence as I have your permission to engage Director Chambers and identify. So the agencies again are Public Works, Health and Human Services, Department of Development, Office of Procurement and Diversity, and again, the external agency, Workforce Development Board. And then there will also be representation on the working group from our Chief of Innovation and our Director of Regional Collaboration, as well as Public Safety. And so I think that will be a very strong working group, and we look forward to working with them closely to advance the next phase of this work. Manager Kari Morales, what's the date of the working group? But you don't need to, but you sent something out last night inviting people to attend a meeting next week, I think, so that'll be the first meeting of the working group.
Yes, I will be following up with a calendar invite. We're looking at Thursday.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll just add, make sure law is included. We'll get someone from the fiscal department. And then I sent Chief Curry a note this morning inviting him. Any other comments on working group? Obviously, we'll refine a lot of their focus and game plan at next week's meeting. And then they will be given a charge and then expected to report out on the results of that charge at our next commission meeting. So again, County Exec, people will be juggling here, but I think everyone is very pleased that you embrace this effort, support it, recognize, that we're going to put a little extra time and effort into our work, but it's that important. And so I love what I heard this morning, just in terms of the spirit of leaning into this moment. So with that, any other comments, feedback, input from the commission members around working group structure, cadence, focus?
So my only recognition is that, I think it would be wonderful if we could try to include some direct service staff, even if those working groups and those pilots are led by department directors or their designees. I do also just want to commit that we will be looking to see how we could have staff from out the organization participate as a critical leadership development function. So that, I think that will be an approach, and I think as we look to organize the meetings, I do want to see how we can have them be enabled for remote access, so staff can listen in and hopefully at some point contribute.
Okay. So, Ms. Morales, did you digest that? Okay,
I apologize. I'm still trying to work on the technical backside.
Okay, no worries. So, Mr. Thomas, please make sure that Mr. Merriman's point is reflected in the minutes. I assume he's on, Director?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we'll proceed with getting the working group organized next week. And one thing, Mr. Merriman, I think would be very, very helpful is I know the executives and chief of staff's broader directors have had an opportunity to have visibility to the work that you and Dr. Harris have done at HHS. I think it would be very useful at the working group, since there will be people who don't normally attend those meetings, to have the benefit of a briefing from the work. You know, this is foundationally get them oriented, particularly with respect to the assessment tool. Would you be open to that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we'll make that as one of the agenda items for Thursday's meeting. Stand by for 1 second. Okay, with that, let me just look back before we go to updates to our, let me find the meeting minutes from our last meeting, because I think we covered a lot of the, where I just have these minutes, because I went, oh, here we go. A lot of the homework that the next steps that were identified in the minutes we've covered. So we had our second meeting. As we hear in a moment from our Chief of Innovation, a data template was issued, and that will need more work, particularly at the working group level. We've identified members of the working group. They've been invited. There is now a web page up for this entity. There's also an email that has been established for public input. So Ms. Morales, would you just mind stating what that email address is for the public watching, so they have, and I know it will also be on the county's website as well.
Yes, it is equitycommission@cuyahogacounty.us.
Okay, that's all Equity Commission, one word, right? No
Correct.
spaces?
Yes.
Okay, Equity Commission at cuyahogacounty.us. So any member of the public that has an idea, thought, reaction to what they heard, or suggested direction, please send an email to that address. Ms. Morales will be checking that daily, and those emails will be forwarded to this commission for review and consideration. We've also established the pilot agencies, as I've already talked about. Each pilot agency has, almost all of them have identified a point person that will represent their work. And then as we'll hear shortly, we are in the process of joining a national nonprofit that helps local governments align and develop strategies around race and equity. So Chief Tkachuk, would you please, if you're on the line, please give us a brief on both the status of the GARE membership and kind of how you foresee the data collection process with the working groups launching.
Sure. So first on the GARE membership, we have started that process. So we're waiting on a couple of documents that we need just for procurement purposes and for GARE to officially register as a supplier in our system. They're working on that. So once that goes in, then we will proceed with the item to go towards Board of Control for approval. So that is in process and should be moving forward pretty quickly once we get those documents back from GARE. And then with regards to what we will need is a little bit of assistance, and probably with the working group, there's an application and input from the committee members. There's an application that helps identify some of the priorities of the group and the key areas that you're wanting to work on regarding racial equity. So we'll look to this group as well as the working group to provide input on that application as we put that in. So we'll collect that information as that's in process as well. So we're ready to complete that as soon as we have, if it's approved by the Board of Control to go forward. Excellent. Regarding the data, so as I shared with the group last week, we did an assessment of our Cuyahoga performance measures, which is about 170 measures that measure things across our strategic priorities of the county. So we did an initial assessment in my office on what items that we thought could potentially be disaggregated by race, knowing that that is a really important step into how into doing this work is understanding where the disparities are by race, and so that you can address them, and also having that data so that you know if the programs and things you're implementing are having an impact. So we did an initial assessment, identified those measures that we believe could be disaggregated by race. There are some that wouldn't be because they don't pertain to people directly, or they're not quantitative measures, they're more of a qualitative measure. And so we sent that out to departments. We should hear back in the next day or so from everybody on, do we already have that data disaggregated by race? So is that already being collected? Or if not, is it something that we could begin to collect? And then we also need to make sure there's no concern. So there are some things that could have HIPAA protections, or if the data is coming from a third party, we need to be aware of those things. So we've asked if there's any concerns about any of the reporting. So we'll have that survey back, I think, by tomorrow, in which case we can review and identify those measures and tie them to, I think, the working group, and identify what those priorities are, so that we can start making sure we have metrics to cover them, and if not, maybe identify additional metrics. I will say we've gotten really good feedback from everybody in terms of, there's some folks that have said, yes, we have the data, and here it already is, they're ready to report it out. So I think that this is something that we have a lot of directors know the importance of, and are taking the steps to give us the information that is needed, that they have available. And if not, a couple have said, hey, we don't have this, but we can certainly talk about how to start collecting it. So we are working on that, and we'll present that where we are. I think that the working group and get their input on those measures, and then identify those ones that we want to be consistently reporting on. We can use our Cuyahoga performance system. We have the performance system already in place to collect that information on a regular basis as well. So I think once we have those metrics established, we can certainly use that information and collect it on a regular basis.
Director Kochik, thanks so much for that update. And really want to just say personally, really appreciate how you have embraced and led on this work, just your willingness to take your modest budget to help make a initial down payment on this work in terms of investing in GARE, and then so quickly, since our last meeting, getting the survey out to departments to have them start to collect it. I know my team, we've discussed what our data looks like at an initial cut, and it is very, very interesting, and I think will make us a stronger department as we analyze the causality of some of the disparities based on our initial analysis. We know we've done good work, but we need to do it differently. But it's just a good reflection, forcing mechanism to reflect and look at things. Sometimes we all have a lot of priorities, and we're just putting one foot in front of the other. So the opportunity to pause, step back, evaluate, and analyze has been very useful, even in the short time that we've gotten the data and organized and analyzed. So that will be a core focus of the working group, and that's, Director Merriman, why I see some commonality, how that happens across each department, since that's the core of this work initially, as directed by the legislation of the Internal Commission. I'm sure the Citizens Advisory Council will also want to have the benefit of seeing that data at some point. But in any event, well done. Thank you so much, and hopefully I did a better job of pronouncing your name on this meeting.
Perfectly done.
Thank you. Okay, let me turn to our last agenda item before open discussion, and we should end right at 11 today. But Director Merriman, you have an update on Milwaukee County, and the county exec was clear in his direction that go full steam on this work, but let's have the benefit of learning from people who are ahead of us. And the resolution also speaks to that, identifying best practices. So you have an update.
Yeah, I do know that Dr. Harris reached out to Milwaukee County again. Dr. Harris led the engagement on this with Sabrina Roberts and Councilwoman Brown on the prior presentation from Milwaukee County. And so we've gone back to them, requested an additional meeting. We have not heard back from them. I think that may be valuable. This is getting a little bit more time between our startup and organization and that next meeting will hopefully allow us to have a more informed and fruitful conversation and presentation. So we'll continue to reach out to them. I think we all know that this gets to be a busy time for local government as budgets are sort of closed and prepared for next year. but we will stay with the effort to confirm a new time for a presentation with Milwaukee County.
Okay, with that, that's the end of our formal agenda. I'll just open it up to any comments from any of the commission members, any things we've missed in this agenda, or critical things we need for between now and our next meeting, and invite the county exec if he has any comments as well before we formally close the meeting. Okay, hearing no comments from anyone, let me just review our homework, what we decided on this meeting. So if I missed anything, please speak up. One of the pieces of homework is calendaring the next meeting. We've agreed that we will go to monthly meetings, so we'll shoot for the next one being sometime early second week of October, and in that meeting, getting an update from the working group on our approach to data collection and analysis. Each agency doesn't have to wait for that working group to start their work, but we can certainly improve it based on feedback from the working group. The working group will have met probably twice by the time of our next meeting, since the first meeting's already scheduled. We will coordinate and meet with the Citizens Advisory Council so that we can align our work. And my suggestion is that the co-chairs meet with Mr. Taylor and Clerk Byrd just to make sure that we are aligned and fully understand the intent of both pieces of legislation and the overlapping output that might be required. And then the survey instrument, the working group will have the benefit of seeing the results from Chief Tkachuk's work, and then we'll refine that, and we'll present that template to the public at our next meeting so they can see the framework of what type of data has been requested of the agencies. Did I miss anything?
No, but I'll take responsibility for reaching out to the county executive's office to find a time that his schedule can accommodate for our next meeting, so we could also give ample notice to the public when we schedule that. Yes,
and so for 2021, I'd like to just institutionalize these so that they don't conflict with any council or other standing meetings, so that the public has visibility and can plan their schedules. And maybe we might want to think about the time of these, so people who work may or may not have time. Well, they can catch the recording, but in any event, that we get a set time for these meetings for the benefit of our calendars and the public. And I think that's it. Commission members, any final? Director Drucker, Pelham, Lockett, any other comments, feedback?
Ted,
Nothing further, Nora.
The only thing
And nothing from me.
I'll go last. The only thing I would add is the finalization of the bylaws. Just please, if you have any thought processes on what we talked about today or what came through, push it to Ms. Morales. She's done a great job of pulling everybody together, and we'll get that locked up and ready for proposal and a vote at the next meeting.
Yes, I just caught my oversight, so thank you. And then, Ms. Morales, anything from your standpoint?
No, I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay. One of the things that I will ask her to do is that we will start, since the legislation calls for identification of best practices, we will start to research those best practices against the policies and programs of the pilot agencies, so we have the benefit of that from GARE and other resources. And so Chief Carroll has an intern that is also going to be working with us, who has done a great job of canvassing what other cities in particular have done around equity. And so we'll make sure. Has every commission member seen that summary grid?
Yeah, I saw it. It looked really good. Maybe we could talk to Matt Carroll about whether or not we could get a brief presentation from his fellow to see if that information could be shared.
That'd be great. Let's Ms. Morales add that as an agenda item for the working group members so she could present. She did an excellent job of both collecting and presenting the information at a meeting recently, and it really gives you a baseline of how other people, governments, geographies, both cities and counties are thinking about this work. So with that, we'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second by Lenora.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Have a great day and weekend, everyone. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.